The drill sergeant's boot scraped sand over her name tag, like he was erasing her existence. Nova Hale kept her eyes down, muscles deliberately slack as jeers echoed across the training ground. "Can't even do 5 pull-ups," someone spat. "Weakest link in Camp Redwater history." But when her shirt tore during the mat demonstration, revealing the jagged sternotomy scar carved down her chest, Commander Pike's face drained of all color. He knew that scar knew what it meant. The Phoenix-class surgery signature from Black Ops files that shouldn't exist. "Welcome to my story. Comment your city below, so I can see how far this tale has traveled." Dawn broke harsh over Camp Redwater, painting the high desert in shades of rust and gold. Nova Hale hung from the pull-up bar arms, trembling with calculated weakness. Her muscles, capable of 20 perfect reps, deliberately failed at 3. "Pathetic." Master Sergeant Trent Cade's voice cracked like a whip across the training ground. His shadow fell over her as she dropped to the dirt landing with more stumble than necessary. "Ladies and gentlemen, witness natural selection at work. Some people just aren't meant to serve." The 47 other recruits stood in perfect formation, their eyes forward, but their smirks barely contained. Leo Han, nephew to some Pentagon big shot, actually laughed out loud. "Something funny, Han?" Cade barked, though his tone held approval rather than reprimand. "No, Sergeant." But Leo's grin remained as his gaze flicked to Nova. "Just appreciating the morning entertainment." Nova pushed herself up slowly, sand clinging to her palms. She brushed them against her fatigues with movements too precise for someone supposedly struggling with basic training. Nobody noticed the way her fingers automatically checked the concealed pocket's muscle memory from years of operational readiness. Cade's boot scraped deliberately across her name tag in the sand, erasing Hale letter by letter. "Earn your oxygen, recruit, or stop wasting hours." The formation marched toward the mess hall, leaving Nova to catch up. She jogged behind them, maintaining the facade of struggle, while her trained eyes cataloged every camera angle, every blind spot between buildings. Camp Redwater's layout was already mapped in her mind. She'd studied the blueprints for weeks before arriving under this cover identity. Inside the mess hall, the orchestrated humiliation continued. As Nova carried her tray past Leo Han's table, his foot shot out. The tray crashed down, eggs and coffee exploding across the floor. Laughter erupted from surrounding tables. "Clean it up, Butterfingers," Leo said, leaning back in his chair. "Maybe the army should test for basic motor skills." Nova dropped to her knees, using napkins to wipe the spill. But watch her hands closely, each napkin folded with military precision corners, squared perfectly. Even while appearing hurried, her breathing remained steady, controlled even as hot coffee soaked through her pants. Captain Imani, observing from the officer's table, noticed. Her dark eyes narrowed slightly before returning to her tablet. The morning's first real test came at the obstacle course. Nova approached the 12-foot wall, her approach deliberately awkward. Other recruits scrambled up using pure upper body strength. She made 2 failed attempts, each one bringing her closer to the wall's surface, her fingers tracing the holds she'd use when the time came. "Move it, Hale!" Cade shouted. "My grandmother could clear that wall, and she's been dead 10 years. On her 3rd attempt, Nova caught the top, but let her grip slip. She fell backward in what looked like an uncontrolled tumble. But frame by frame, it was a textbook breakfall body, rotating mid-air impact, distributed perfectly across her back, no joint taking excessive force. She rolled to her feet, stumbling for show, but Imani had seen it. The captain made a note on her tablet. The rope climb presented another opportunity for Nova's performance. She gripped the rope wrong deliberately, using too much arm strength instead of proper foot technique. Halfway up, she slipped, sliding down several feet. The friction should have torn her palms raw, but when she reached the ground breathing hard for effect, her hands showed only old calluses. the kind earned from years of fast roping out of helicopters. Pathetic display, Hale. Cade circled her like a predator. You're an embarrassment to that uniform. Nova kept her head down, but her peripheral vision tracked everything. 2 cameras on the North Tower, 1 mounted on the equipment shed, a blind spot near the medical tent where someone could move unseen for approximately 12 seconds. Information filed away. At the weapons qualification line, Nova fumbled with her M4 carbine. Her stance was all wrong, feet too close together. Shoulder position that would guarantee bruising from recoil. The range safety officer, Sergeant Mills, actually stepped forward to correct her. Spread your feet, recruit. Shoulder the weapon properly. Nova adjusted slowly, making it worse before making it better. But when Mills turned away, her hands moved with different purpose. The way she cleared the chamber smooth automatic without looking. The way her finger indexed along the receiver instead of near the trigger. Muscle memory that couldn't quite be suppressed. She fired her qualifying rounds, grouping them just barely within passing standards. But Imani, watching through binoculars from the tower, noticed something else. The pattern wasn't random. The shots formed a perfect circle around the bullseye, the kind of precision that took extraordinary skill to achieve deliberately. Commander Rowan Pike stood beside Imani, his own binoculars trained on Nova. Interesting recruit, he said quietly. Which one, sir? Hale. Something about her. Pike lowered his binoculars, jaw tight, with an unnamed tension. Run a deeper background check. Already did, sir. Everything checks out. Foster system, no family, unremarkable academic record. Pike nodded, but his expression remained troubled. Something nagged at him, some half-remembered detail from classified briefings he'd attended years ago. That evening, Nova sat alone in the corner of the barracks, supposedly studying the basic training manual. In reality, she was memorizing guard rotation schedules visible through the window. Every 20 minutes, the roving patrol passed the administration building. Every hour, they took a 3-minute smoke break behind the motor pool. Patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. Leo Hahn and his crew entered the barracks still high from the day's sanctioned bullying. Hey, Hale, Leo called out. Studying won't help if you don't have the physical goods. Nova looked up slowly, letting a calculated amount of fear show in her eyes. Just trying to improve. Improve? Leo laughed. Some people are born soldiers. Others are born victims. Guess which one you are? The lights-out call saved her from responding. Nova lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Beneath her pillow, her fingers found the micro-tool kit she'd hidden during intake, a set of precision picks disguised as pencil leads. Phase 1 was proceeding perfectly. Let them think her weak. Let them underestimate. The real mission hadn't even begun. At 0200, Nova slipped from her bunk. Her movement was ghost quiet, avoiding the squeaky floorboards she'd mapped during her first night. The bathroom window provided her exit point, a gap in coverage she'd identified between the 2 night vision cameras. She had 4 minutes before the next patrol sweep. She didn't need them all. The administration building's lock was military grade, but Nova had picked harder ones under fire. The tumblers clicked home in sequence, and she was inside within 30 seconds. Emergency lighting cast long shadows down the corridors. She moved between them, her body automatically finding the dead spaces where motion sensors couldn't reach. The personnel office held what she needed. File cabinets lined the walls, physical records that couldn't be hacked remotely. Nova photographed roster after roster, focusing on procurement officers, logistics, coordinators, anyone with access to weapons shipments or classified intel. Somewhere in these files was the connection to her father's death. A name stopped her cold. Colonel Marcus Hahn, Pentagon Logistics Division. Leo's uncle. She photographed everything in his personnel jacket then moved to the procurement records. Shipping manifests, contractor agreements, budget allocations, all of it flowing through her hidden camera, uploading automatically to servers 3 states away through her medical alert bracelet's hidden transmitter. In the margins of one report, she found it. Operation Ghost Phoenix, her father's final mission, the one that got him killed. The procurement chain had been compromised. Someone had sold out the entire unit's insertion route. Nova's hands trembled for real this time, rage threatening to break through her careful control. A door clicked somewhere in the building. Nova went still, listening. Footsteps, military boots, trying to walk quietly, but not quite succeeding. She had perhaps 30 seconds before they reached this office. Time to go. She slipped the files back exactly as she'd found them, then moved to the window. The 4-story drop would be challenging, but manageable. She'd done higher. But as she reached for the latch, the door opened behind her. "Don't move." Nova turned slowly. Captain Imani stood in the doorway, service weapon drawn, but not quite aimed. "Hands where I can see them, recruit." Nova raised her hands, mind calculating exit strategies. But Imani did something unexpected. She holstered her weapon and closed the door behind her. "You're not very good at playing weak," Imani said quietly. That breakfall today was textbook special operations. The shooting pattern was deliberately precise, and nobody with soft hands develops calluses like yours. Nova said nothing, watching for the trap. Imani moved to the window, checking the grounds below. "Whoever you really are, whatever you're really doing here, you should know you're not the only one who's noticed things aren't right at Redwater." "I don't know what you mean, Captain." "No." Imani pulled out her phone, showing Nova a video. Security footage from the weapons range zoomed in on Nova's hands during the clearing drill. The practiced automatic movements were undeniable. "I've seen Rangers with less muscle memory than that." Nova's options narrowed. Deny and maintain cover, or take a calculated risk on this woman who'd found her, but hadn't raised the alarm. "Why haven't you reported this?" Nova asked carefully. "Because 2 days ago a shipment of weapons went missing from our armory. The paperwork says they were transferred to Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg says they never received them. And the signature on the transfer, someone who doesn't exist." Nova's pulse quickened. This was bigger than just her father's death. "You think someone's running weapons out of Redwater?" "I think someone's running a lot more than weapons. And I think you're here to find out who." Imani moved closer. "The question is whether you're investigating them or working for them." Before Nova could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple sets moving fast, no longer trying for stealth. "Training mat demonstration tomorrow," Imani said quickly, pressing a keycard into Nova's hand. "Building 7. Don't let them pull their punches." She moved to the door. "I'll buy you 30 seconds. Window's your only option." Imani stepped into the hallway, her voice carrying back. "False alarm, gentlemen. Thought I saw movement, but it's just shadows." Nova didn't waste the gift. She went through the window in one fluid motion, catching the ledge below, then the next, then dropping the final story into a controlled roll. She was back in her bunk with 40 seconds to spare before the barracks door burst open. "Surprise inspection!" Cade's voice boomed through the darkness. "Everyone up! Full kit display in 60 seconds!" Recruits tumbled from their bunks in confusion. Nova moved with the rest, playing drowsy and disoriented. Her kit was exactly regulation. Nothing extra, nothing missing. The picks were already back in their hiding spot, looking like nothing more than spare pencils. Cade moved down the line, his flashlight searching faces more than footlockers. When he reached Nova, he stopped. "Hale, you were sweating." "Nightmare, Sergeant." Her voice came out appropriately shaky. He leaned closer, and she could smell the tobacco on his breath. "Must have been quite a dream. Your kind tends to have those." The weak always know they don't belong. Leo Han stood behind Cade, eager to please. Want me to check her locker? Extra thorough, Sergeant. Do it. Leo went through her belongings with vindictive thoroughness. He found the pencils, examined them, even broke one to check inside. Just graphite. His disappointment was obvious. Clean, he reported reluctantly. Cade's eyes never left Nova's face. This time. The inspection ended, but sleep didn't come for Nova. Tomorrow's mat demonstration would be different. Imani's warning suggested it wouldn't be standard training. They were going to escalate, and she'd have to decide how much capability to reveal. Morning came too soon. The mat demonstration was scheduled after breakfast, hand-to-hand combat basics that every recruit needed to master. But the setup was different. More instructors present, more officers watching from the observation deck, and Commander Pike himself, standing with arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Today we learn about pressure, Cade announced. Combat isn't fair. The enemy won't hold back. Neither will we. He gestured to Leo. Han, you're up. Show Hale what real fighting looks like. Leo stepped onto the mat with a predator's grin. He outweighed Nova by 40 pounds, had 6 inches of reach on her. In a fair fight, those advantages mattered. But this wouldn't be fair. Imani had made that clear. Standard grappling rules, Cade said. Submission or unconsciousness ends it. But as Leo moved forward, Nova caught the subtle signs. The instructor's position to block camera angles. The medical team conspicuously absent. This was meant to hurt. Leo came in fast with a takedown attempt. Nova let him get close, then stumbled backward, making it look clumsy. But her fall took her away from his follow-up strike, the one that would have been illegal in actual training. Stop running, coward! Leo rushed again. This time Nova couldn't fully evade. His shoulder caught her midsection, driving her into the mat hard. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs that was real, not performance. Leo's weight crushed down on her, his forearm pressing against her throat with more force than any training demonstration required. Tap out, he hissed, or I'll put you in medical. Nova's vision started to narrow from the choke. Around them, recruits watched in uncomfortable silence. This wasn't normal. This wasn't training. But nobody intervened. Her hand moved toward a tap, then changed direction. The heel palm strike to Leo's ribs was subtle, looking like a desperate push. But it hit the nerve cluster perfectly. His grip loosened for just a moment, enough for Nova to bridge and roll, reversing their positions. For a second, she had control. Her body wanted to move into a proper hold to show these amateurs what real combat looked like, but the mission required maintaining cover. She let Leo power out of the reversal, throwing her aside. They reset, circling now. Leo was angry. The rib strike had hurt more than he'd expected. He came in wild with a haymaker. Nova ducked, but not quite enough. His fist clipped her shoulder, spinning her around. She went with the momentum, turning it into an awkward fall. But the fall brought her too close to the mat's edge. Leo followed, grabbing her training shirt to haul her back. The fabric tore with a loud rip, exposing her left shoulder and upper chest. Time stopped. The scar was impossible to miss. It ran from her clavicle down past her sternum, a jagged line of raised tissue that spoke of emergency surgery of a chest cracked open in a field hospital. But it was more than just a medical scar. The pattern, the specific way it had been closed, the secondary marks around it, they told a story that certain people could read. Commander Pike's face went white. His hand actually gripped the railing as recognition hit him like a physical blow. He knew that scar pattern. Phoenix-class emergency surgery performed only on certain operators in certain units that officially didn't exist. He'd seen the classification briefing 5 years ago, after an entire black ops team had been ambushed based on leaked intelligence. Stop! Pike's voice cut through the gymnasium. Not shouted, but carrying absolute authority. That's enough. Leo stepped back, confused by the sudden intervention. Nova pulled her torn shirt closed, but the damage was done. Every eye in the gym had seen the scar. Most didn't understand its significance, but they understood that their commander did. Hale, Pike said, his voice carefully controlled. Administration building. Now. Nova stood slowly, playing up a limp she didn't have. As she passed Imani, the captain gave her the slightest nod. The opening gambit had been played. Cade's expression was unreadable as he watched her go. The rest of you back to drills. Han, you're on equipment cleaning duty. But Sergeant I1, did I ask for commentary, recruit? Nova followed Pike across the compound, aware of the eyes tracking them from windows and doorways. The administration building felt different in daylight, more exposed, more official. Pike led her not to the general offices, but to a secured conference room she hadn't known existed. He closed the door and engaged the electronic lock. For a long moment, he just stared at her. That scar, he said finally. Phoenix-class field surgery. There were only 7 surgeons in the entire military certified for that procedure. It was designed for operators who couldn't be evacuated, who needed immediate thoracic intervention in hostile territory. Nova remained silent. The program was discontinued 5 years ago, Pike continued. After the Ghost Phoenix incident, an entire unit betrayed, ambushed based on inside intelligence. Only one operator survived, and she was 17 years old, the daughter of the unit commander. Still, Nova said nothing. Pike moved to the window, looking out at his base. That survivor disappeared from all records, officially died from her injuries. Unofficially, he turned back to her. Why are you here? I'm recruit Nova Hale, sir. Foster system, no family. Stop. Pike's hand slammed the table. I have clearance levels you can't imagine. I know who you are. What I don't know is why the daughter of Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Hale is undercover in my basic training program. Nova weighed her options. Pike knew too much to maintain her cover, but his reaction suggested he wasn't part of the network she was hunting. Someone in this base sold out my father's unit, she said quietly, dropping the fake accent she'd been maintaining. Someone's still selling information. Weapons, routes, everything that gets soldiers killed. Pike's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. 2 days ago, a weapons shipment disappeared from your armory. The paperwork trail leads to contractors who don't exist. The money trail leads through Pentagon logistics. She met his eyes, specifically through Colonel Marcus Hahn's department. Pike went very still. Leo Hahn's uncle. Leo's been feeding him information. Probably thinks he's helping with legitimate oversight, but his uncle is using him to identify valuable intel and vulnerable assets. You have proof. Nova pulled out her phone, showing him the photographed documents. Pike scrolled through them, his expression darkening with each image. My God, he whispered. This goes back years. Every suspicious incident, every missing shipment. He looked up sharply. Who else knows you're here? My handler. And now you. Imani. She suspects, but she doesn't know the full scope. Pike handed back her phone. If you're right, if this network realizes you're here, they'll try to kill me. Again. Nova's hand unconsciously touched her scar. They nearly succeeded the first time. Before Pike could respond, his desk phone rang. The secured line. He answered, listened, then hung up without speaking. We have a problem, he said. That was perimeter security. 3 SUVs with government plates just arrived. They're asking for you by name. Your real name. Nova's blood chilled. Her cover had been blown. Someone had recognized the scar, understood its significance, and made a call. The network was moving to eliminate her. How long? she asked. They're at the main gate now. Processing their credentials will take maybe 10 minutes. Then we have 10 minutes to expose them, or I disappear forever. Pike stood. What do you need? Every recruit in Basic Unit 7. Full combat gear. And Captain Imani. You want to use trainees? They're not ready. They're about to be. Nova moved to the door. Sir, my father died because he trusted the wrong people. I'm asking you to trust the right ones. Those recruits out there, they're not part of this network. They're clean. That makes them our only advantage. Pike hesitated for one more second, then grabbed his radio. Captain Imani, to Admin Building 7 Priority 1. Master Sergeant Cade mobilize Basic Unit 7 for emergency tactical exercise. Full gear live scenario. You have 3 minutes. As Nova headed for the door, Pike called after her. Hale, your father would be proud. She paused. He'd be alive if the system had protected him instead of selling him out. Then let's fix the system. Nova ran across the compound, her carefully maintained facade of weakness abandoned. Recruits stared as she sprinted past the same woman who could barely do pull-ups, now moving like an Olympic athlete. She burst into the barracks as others were still struggling into their gear. Listen up! She shouted, her voice carrying new authority. In approximately 7 minutes, men with guns are going to come for me. They're not real government agents. They're contractors paid to eliminate a witness to treason. The recruits froze, confused. Leo Han stepped forward. What are you talking about? You're just a recruit. No. Nova pulled off her outer shirt, revealing not just the scar, but the tattoos around it. Unit insignia, Operation Dates of Phoenix, rising from flames. I'm Lieutenant Nova Hale, Force Recon Infiltration Specialist. And whether you know it or not, some of you have been helping enemies of the state. Leo went pale. That's impossible. Your uncle Colonel Han, every piece of gossip you've shared, every photo of training schedules you've sent him, thinking you were helping with oversight. He's been selling that information, getting soldiers killed for profit. You're lying. But Leo's voice cracked with sudden doubt. Cade entered with Imani. What the hell is going on? Nova turned to him. Sergeant, you're about to have a choice. Follow orders from men who will arrive with official-looking papers or protect this base from infiltration. Choose now. Cade looked to Pike, who had just arrived. The commander nodded grimly. She's telling the truth, Trent. We've been compromised. The distant sound of vehicle engines grew louder. The SUVs had passed the gate. Defensive positions. Nova ordered, assuming command naturally. Windows and doorways. Nobody shoots unless fired upon, but nobody lets them take me either. The recruits looked confused, torn between training and chaos. Then Imani spoke up. You heard the lieutenant move. Training kicked in. Recruits scattered to defensive positions, but their weapons held only simulation rounds, nothing that would stop real bullets. Nova grabbed the radio from Pike. Range control, this is Lieutenant Hale. Authorization Ghost 77. Release the emergency ammunition stores for Unit 7. This is not a drill. There was a pause then. Authorization confirmed. Stores released. She turned to 2 recruits. Rodriguez Kim, sprint to the armory. Bring back live rounds for everyone. Go. They ran. The SUVs were visible now, approaching fast. 3 vehicles, tactical formation. Professional. Leo, Nova called out. This is your chance. Your uncle used you. Help us stop him, or go down as a traitor. Leo's hands shook as he checked his weapon. I sent him photos yesterday. Training schedules, personnel rotations. His voice broke. Oh, God. What have I done? You can fix it, Nova said. What exactly did you send? Everything. Guard positions, camera, blind spots even. His face went white. Even that you'd be at the mat demonstration this morning. He asked specifically about you after your name came up in processing. The pieces clicked together. The escalated hazing, the violent demonstration, it had all been orchestrated to expose her, to confirm her identity through that distinctive scar. The SUV stopped 50 meters from Building 7. Doors opened. Men in tactical gear emerged, not military uniforms, but close enough to confuse. They moved with purpose toward the building. "Federal agents," one called out through a megaphone. "We have authorization to detain recruit Hale for matters of national security." Pike stepped onto the steps. "I'm Commander Pike. Show me your authorization." The lead operative approached, holding out documents. But Nova saw it, the subtle hand signal to his team. They were positioning for breach. "Those are forgeries," Nova called out from the doorway. "Check the authorization codes against your database, Commander. They won't match." The operative's hand moved toward his weapon. "Sir, we need you to step aside." "I think not." Pike's own hand rested on his sidearm. "Until those codes verify you're trespassers on a military installation." Tension crackled across the compound. Rodriguez and Kim sprinted back with ammunition cases, distributing magazines to the recruits. The metallic sounds of rounds being chambered echoed from windows. The lead operative spoke into his radio. "Complications. Moving to secondary protocol." That's when Nova heard it. The distinctive whine of a drone. Military-grade, armed. The network had come prepared for resistance. "Incoming!" she shouted. The first missile hit the communications tower. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to kill external communications. They were being isolated. "Open fire!" A recruit called out, panic in his voice. "Negative," Nova commanded. "They want us to shoot first. Makes us the aggressors." She turned to Imani. "Captain, can you reach the actual feds?" "Not with comms down." Imani checked her phone. "They're jamming cellular too." Another explosion, the motor pool this time. They were eliminating transportation options. Cade moved beside Nova. "We're sitting ducks here." "No." Nova said, a plan forming. "We're bait." She grabbed the radio. "All units prepare for tactical displacement. On my mark, everyone moves to training area 3. "The urban warfare course?" Cade asked. "Concrete structures, defensive positions, and something else they don't know about." She'd studied every inch of this base. Training Area 3 had redundant hardline communications installed for emergency scenarios, but never advertised. "Federal agents, final warning." The megaphone crackled. "Surrender Hale or we engage." Nova stepped into full view. "You want me? Come get me." She sprinted from the building. Behind her, recruits provided covering positions as she ran. The operatives pursued immediately, their professional formation breaking as they tried to track her movement. "All units displace now," Nova commanded. The recruits moved in trained bounds, covering each other as they withdrew toward training area 3. The operatives followed, but they were expecting to chase panicked trainees, not an organized retreat. Nova reached the urban course first, immediately locating the hardline phone in the command bunker. She dialed from memory, not official channels, but a number known only to certain people. It rang once. "Phoenix Rising," she said. "Confirm corruption." The voice responded. "Nest is burning. Multiple hostiles. Request immediate support. 10 minutes out." 10 minutes. They had to hold for 10 minutes. The operatives reached the edge of the course, but now they faced a different scenario. The recruits held defensive positions in structures designed for exactly this kind of combat. And they were motivated. Nova's revelation about Leo's uncle about the corruption had given them purpose beyond training. "Flash grenades," an operative called. The devices detonated throughout the course, designed to disorient. But Nova had trained these recruits in the last few minutes. "Keep your positions. They're hurting us." She was right. The grenades were meant to push defenders into a kill box, but knowing the tactic made it defeatable. Leo Han appeared beside her, tears streaming down his face. I helped them. I gave them everything. Then help us stop them, Nova said. Your uncle, what else did you tell him? Leo thought desperately. There's a weapons shipment tonight. Experimental equipment. The route the guards, I sent it all this morning. Nova's mind raced. That's why they were moving now. They needed her eliminated before she could interfere with tonight's theft. An operative rounded the corner. Nova moved without thinking, her muscle memory taking over. The disarm was textbook, the follow-up strike precise. He dropped unconscious, his weapon clattering away. But more were coming. The recruits were holding, but barely. These weren't simulations anymore. Then she heard it. Helicopters. Multiple rotors approaching fast. The lead operative heard them too. He spoke urgently into his radio. Extract now. But it was too late. The helicopters were already overhead. Fast ropes deployed. Figures in black descended, real federal agents, the kind that actually had authorization. The firefight was brief. The operatives were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Within minutes, they were face down on the ground, zip-tied and arrested. A familiar figure approached Nova. Deputy Director Sarah Chen, her handler. Cutting it close, Nova. Had to let them commit them. Now we have them on attempted murder of a federal agent, destruction of military property, and conspiracy. Chen nodded, then looked at the recruits still holding defensive positions. These kids did well. They're not kids anymore. Nova watched as medics checked them for injuries. Most were minor cuts, bruises, shock more than anything. They just learned what it really means to serve. Pike approached with Cade and Imani. The base is secure. Communications are back online. Commander, Chen said formally. We'll need full statements from everyone. This investigation is just beginning. What about Leo Han? Pike asked. Nova spoke before Chen could. He was an unwitting asset. Manipulated by family he trusted. He made the right choice when it mattered. Leo stood nearby, head hanging in shame. Nova walked over to him. Your uncle's going to prison, she said quietly. But you can help make sure nobody else gets used like you were. Tell them everything. Hold nothing back. He nodded, unable to speak. As the federal agents processed the scene, Nova found herself standing where it had all started, the pull-up bars, where she'd pretended to be weak just 24 hours ago. Cade approached his usual swagger, replaced by something like respect. That performance this morning. You could have destroyed me at any time. The mission required maintaining cover. No, Cade said. You could have broken cover and still completed the mission. You chose to let us keep our dignity until the truth had to come out. He paused. Your father trained you well. Nova's throat tightened. He trained me to survive, to complete the mission, to protect those who can't protect themselves. Then he'd be proud of what you did today. She touched the scar on her chest, feeling the raised tissue that marked her survival, her loss, her purpose. The network is bigger than just Camp Redwater. This was just one node. You're going after the rest, every last one of them. As the sun set over the high desert, casting long shadows across Camp Redwater, Nova walked through the compound one last time. Tomorrow she'd leave, resume her hunt under a new identity. But today had proven something important. The system could be fixed. Corruption could be exposed. Good people, given the chance and the truth, would stand up for what was right. Her secure phone buzzed. One word on the screen. Ready. Nova typed back, always. Because the Phoenix hadn't just survived that ambush 5 years ago. It had been reborn with a purpose to burn away the corruption that had killed her father and his team. Camp Redwater was just the beginning. As she packed her gear, a knock came at the door. Captain Imani entered. "Thought you should know," Imani said. "The recruits are asking what happens next. They want to know if you'll be back. They don't need me anymore. They learned the most important lesson: sometimes standing up to power is the only way to serve with honor." Imani handed her an envelope. From Commander Pike. Inside was a single photo, her father's unit taken days before the ambush. Below it, Pike had written, "They didn't die for nothing." Nova tucked the photo into her pocket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new identities, new battles against the shadow network that profited from soldiers' blood. But tonight, for just a moment, she'd won. The ghost of the Phoenix had risen at Camp Redwater, and somewhere in the darkness, her enemies were learning to fear that resurrection. The secure phone in Nova's pocket vibrated again as she crossed the tarmac toward the unmarked helicopter. 3 words this time: change of plans. She stopped mid-stride, her trained instincts immediately cataloging exits, counting the federal agents still processing the scene, measuring distances to cover. Deputy Director Chen noticed her hesitation and approached. "Problem?" Chen asked quietly, though her hand subtly shifted toward her concealed weapon. Nova showed her the message. Chen's expression darkened. "Get in the helicopter, now." They moved quickly, but without obvious urgency, maintaining the appearance of routine extraction. Once airborne, Chen activated the cabin's scrambling system and handed Nova a tablet. The screen showed surveillance footage from 3 hours ago. A man in a federal detention facility speaking to his lawyer. Colonel Marcus Hanleo's uncle recently arrested based on Nova's evidence. "Listen carefully," Chen said. The audio was crystal clear. "Tell them the Phoenix girl only found the surface," Han's voice said. "The real operation happens tonight. If they want the buyer list, I need full immunity and witness protection." The lawyer leaned forward. "What buyer list?" "Foreign nationals, terror cells, cartels, everyone who's been purchasing our diverted weapons for the past 5 years. Han's smile was visible even on the grainy footage. "Without me, they'll never find the auction site." Nova's jaw clenched. "He's leveraging our own investigation." "It gets worse." Chen swiped to another file. 20 minutes after this conversation, his lawyer made a call. The number traces to a burn phone, but the tower data puts it at Camp Redwater. Someone inside that base is still active. The helicopter banked sharply, changing course. Nova felt the shift immediately. "We're going back." "You're going back. Undercover. Again." Chen pulled out a new set of credentials. "Nova Hale is blown, but Specialist Sarah Knox just got emergency orders to Redwater's intelligence unit. You have 6 hours to identify the inside contact and stop that auction." Nova studied the new identity. "What about the recruits? They know my face." "Confined to barracks pending investigation. Official story is, you were extracted for your protection. Only Pike Cade and Imani know you might return." The helicopter descended toward a secondary landing zone, 5 miles from Camp Redwater. Nova could see the base lights in the distance, the damaged communications tower still smoking. Somewhere in that maze of buildings and procedures, a traitor was preparing to auction American weapons to the highest bidder. Chen handed her a specially modified smartphone. "Direct line to my team. The moment you identify the auction site, we move in. But Nova..." She paused. "Han's lawyer died in a car accident an hour ago. Single vehicle drove off a cliff. No witnesses." The message was clear. The network was cleaning house, eliminating loose ends. Anyone who knew too much was a target, including Nova herself. The helicopter touched down in darkness. Nova grabbed her gear bag, checking the concealed weapons and surveillance equipment one more time. As she stepped out, Chen called after her. "Your father investigated this network for 3 years before they killed him. He got close, maybe too close. Don't make his mistake." What mistake was that? He trusted someone inside. We still don't know who. Nova shouldered her pack and disappeared into the desert night. The 5-mile trek to Redwater's perimeter would take her through rough terrain, but it was safer than the main road. As she moved, her mind processed the implications. Her father had been betrayed by someone he trusted, someone who might still be at Camp Redwater. She reached the perimeter fence at 0300 hours. The damage from the earlier assault had created gaps in security cameras, offline motion sensors, disabled. She slipped through easily muscle memory, guiding her through the shadows. The administrative building where she needed to report wouldn't open until 0600. 3 hours to investigate. The motor pool still smoldered from the drone strike. Nova circled it carefully, noting the pattern of damage. Something was off. The strikes had been too precise, too limited. They'd disabled vehicles and communications, but left the weapons depot untouched. Why? A footstep on gravel made her freeze. Someone else was out here, moving carefully through the darkness. Nova melted into the shadow of a damaged Humvee, controlling her breathing. The figure passed within 10 feet of her position, Master Sergeant Cade, carrying a sealed container. He moved toward the training areas, specifically toward Building 12, a storage facility that should have been locked down after the day's events. Nova followed at a distance, her suspicions growing. Cade had been harsh but professional during her cover identities training. But now, moving through the darkness with practiced stealth, he looked like someone with secrets. Cade produced a key that shouldn't exist. Building 12 required dual authorization for access. He disappeared inside. Nova counted to 30, then followed. The door had been left slightly ajar, whether by mistake or design she couldn't tell. Inside, emergency lighting cast green shadows down empty corridors. She could hear Cade's footsteps deeper in the building, descending stairs that shouldn't exist, according to the base schematics she'd memorized. A sub-basement, hidden from official records. Nova descended carefully, testing each step for noise. The stairwell opened into a storage area that definitely wasn't on any blueprint. Crates lined the walls, military designation stamps barely visible in the dim light. But the stamps were wrong serial numbers that didn't match any legitimate procurement she'd seen. Cade stood at a communications terminal, encrypted and hardwired to avoid detection. He was typing rapidly, and Nova could see enough of the screen to read fragments. Phoenix eliminated. Alternate site ready. Auction proceeds as planned. Her blood went cold. Cade wasn't investigating. He was part of the network. She drew her sidearm, a silent automatic with subsonic rounds. Step away from the terminal, Sergeant. Cade's hands stopped moving, but he didn't turn around. I wondered when you'd show up. Chen always did like her dramatic timing. Turn around, slowly. He complied, and his expression held no surprise, only a tired kind of resignation. You look just like your father, you know. Same eyes, same stubborn set to the jaw. Nova's weapon didn't waver. You knew him. I served under him. Afghanistan 2019. Best commander I ever had. Cade took a step forward, right up until he started investigating the wrong people. Stop moving. Did Chen tell you why your father really died? Or did she feed you the sanitized version? Another step. He found out about the weapons network, yes, but he also found out who was running it. Nova's finger tightened on the trigger. Stay where you are. High-level Pentagon officials, Congressional Oversight Committee members, even some people in Chen's own agency. Cade's smile was bitter. Your father was going to expose them all. So they exposed him first. Fed his unit's position to the enemy. Made it look like bad intelligence. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why Chen sent you back here alone. Why she didn't flood this base with agents the moment Han started talking. Another step. Because she needs you to find the evidence, then she needs you to disappear, just like your father. Nova's aim shifted slightly, targeting center mass. Even if that's true, you're still trafficking weapons. I'm surviving, playing the game until I can find proof of who really killed your father. Cade pulled something from his pocket, slowly telegraphing the movement. A flash drive. 3 years of evidence. Financial records, communication logs, even recordings. Everything you need to bring down the real network. Convenient story. There's a laptop in that crate behind you. Look for yourself. But do it quickly. The auction starts in 4 hours and we're not the only ones preparing for it. Against her better judgment, Nova glanced at the crate. A military laptop sat on top, powered on, displaying file directories that made her pulse race. Operation Ghost Phoenix. Financial transfers. Personnel files. Her father's name appeared in document after document. Why should I trust you? She asked. You shouldn't. But consider this. I could have let those contractors take you this morning. I could have identified your scar during the mat demonstration and ended your mission right there. Instead, I escalated to force the revelation in a controlled environment with Pike and Imani watching. I protected you while maintaining my cover. Nova's mind raced through the morning's events with new perspective. Cade's positioning, his timing, the way he'd moved other instructors to specific locations. It had been orchestrated, but not to hurt her, to protect her, while forcing the conspiracy into the open. A noise from above made them both freeze. Footsteps, multiple sets moving with tactical precision. Company, Cade whispered. Not ours. Nova grabbed the laptop and flash drive. Exit. Service tunnel. This way. They moved deeper into the sub-basement, Cade leading through a maze of storage areas that shouldn't exist. Behind them, the footsteps descended the stairs. Whoever was coming knew exactly where to look. The service tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for one person. They crawled through in darkness, Cade's breathing harsh ahead of her. After 50 meters, they emerged in a drainage culvert outside the base perimeter. The auction, Nova demanded. Where is it? Mobile location. Convoy of trucks that looks like routine logistics movement. They'll rendezvous at coordinates that get transmitted just 1 hour before. Cade checked his watch. But I know where they're staging. Show me. They moved across the desert toward a ridge overlooking the base. From there, Nova could see the entire compound, including areas hidden from normal sightlines. Cade pointed to the northwest corner, where several trucks were parked in unusual formation. Those aren't standard military vehicles, Nova observed using her field glasses. The wheelbase is wrong. They've been modified for heavy cargo. Each one carries approximately 50 million in weapons, guided missiles, next-gen night vision, even experimental directed energy devices. Cade's voice held disgust. All reported as training losses or destroyed in testing. Nova's phone buzzed. Chen's number, but she didn't answer. Something about Cade's story rang true. The isolation, the limited backup, the convenient timing. Instead, she sent a coded message to a different number, one Chen didn't know about. Her own insurance policy established years ago. We need to stop those trucks, Nova said. We need to identify the buyers first. Otherwise, they'll just reschedule and we'll lose our only chance. Cade pulled out tactical gear from a hidden cache. I've been planning this for months. There's only one problem. What? The inside contact Han mentioned. The one still active at Redwater. Cade's expression was grim. It's Commander Pike. Nova's blood chilled. Pike, who'd recognized her scar, who'd seemed so helpful, who'd supported her revelation to the recruits. You're certain? He's the one who authorized the sub-basement construction. Off books using black budget funds. He's been facilitating the network for years, playing the role of concerned commander while enabling the trafficking. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Pike's quick recognition of her scar hadn't been from classified briefings. It had been from reviewing her father's files while planning his death. His cooperation during the contractor assault had been theater ensuring his cover remained intact. He knows I'm back, Nova realized. Chen would have notified him about the specialist cover identity, which means he knows we're out here. Cade scanned the darkness. We need to move. Now. Muzzle flashes erupted from 3 positions simultaneously. Nova and Cade dove behind rocks as bullets sparked off stone. The ambush was professional coordinated. Pike had sent his best. Nova returned fire, her shots disciplined and accurate. One attacker fell back clutching his shoulder, but more were moving to flank them. They were outnumbered and outpositioned. The drainage tunnel, Cade shouted, pointing to a concrete opening 20 meters away. They moved in bounds, one covering, while the other advanced. Nova felt a round tug at her jacket, but kept moving. The tunnel offered temporary safety, but it was also a potential trap. Inside, they could hear pursuit organizing behind them. Ahead, the tunnel split into 3 directions. Which way? Nova demanded. Left goes back to base. Right leads to the highway. Cade hesitated. Center goes to the old training ground. Abandoned, but what? Your father trained there. Before his last mission. He might have left something. It was thin, desperate logic, but Nova's instincts said to trust it. They plunged into the center tunnel, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Behind them, voices grew closer. The tunnel emerged in a derelict training facility, structures crumbling from years of desert weather. But Nova recognized it from photos her father's unit had spent weeks here before deploying on Operation Ghost Phoenix. The command bunker, she said, memory guiding her. He always used it as his planning center. They found it half buried in sand, the door rusted but functional. Inside, dust covered everything, but the space had been preserved like a tomb. Maps still covered the walls marked with her father's distinctive notation style. And in the corner, a safe she recognized her father's personal field. Safe the combination her birthday. Inside were documents that made everything clear. Financial records showing Pike's payments from foreign nationals. Communication logs between Han and a network spanning multiple countries. And photographs her father's insurance policy images of Pike meeting with known arms dealers, Han facilitating transfers, even Chen. Nova's hands shook. There was Chen, 5 years younger, sitting across from the enemy operative who'd led the ambush on her father's unit. The timestamp was 3 days before the mission. She knew, Nova whispered. Chen knew the ambush was coming. She was junior then, following orders, Cade said carefully. But yes, she knew. And when your father started getting close to the truth, she made a choice. Career over conscience. The sound of vehicles approaching cut short Nova's processing of this betrayal. Multiple engines surrounding the facility. They were trapped. There's another way, Cade said, pulling aside a wall panel to reveal a narrow passage. Your father was paranoid about exits. This leads to the vehicle depot. They crawled through dust and darkness, Nova's mind reeling from the revelations. Everyone she'd trusted was compromised. The entire operation had been a setup from the beginning. Chen hadn't sent her to stop the weapons auction, she'd sent her to be eliminated once she'd identified all the evidence that needed destroying. The depot held military vehicles in various states of repair. Cade hot-wired a Humvee, while Nova watched their perimeter. Her phone buzzed again, Chen repeatedly calling. Nova answered this time. Where are you? Chen's voice was tight with false concern. You missed check-in. Following leads, Nova replied, keeping her voice neutral. The auction's in 3 hours. Pike says he hasn't seen you arrive. Your cover identity is blown. Pike's the inside contact. Nova let accusation color her tone, testing Chen's reaction. There was a pause. That's concerning. I'm mobilizing a full team. Send me your location. I'll handle it. Maintain radio silence until I confirm the auction site. Nova hung up before Chen could respond. Cade got the vehicle running. Where to? The staging area. We stop those trucks before they move. 2 of us, against Pike's entire security detail. No. Nova pulled out her phone, scrolling to a contact she hadn't used in years. Time to call in a debt. The phone rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. This better be important. Nightshade 6, this is Phoenix. I need immediate support at Camp Redwater. There was silence then. Phoenix is dead. Died 5 years ago with her father. Phoenix rose. Check your emergency codes. Authorization Ghost 77. Another pause longer. Coordinates. Nova gave them, then added, bring everyone. We're taking down the network that killed my father. Copy. 30 minutes. They drove through the desert, avoiding main roads. The staging area was ahead, trucks being loaded by soldiers who probably didn't know they were handling stolen weapons destined for terrorists and cartels. Pike stood in the center, directing operations with the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. He's early, Cade observed, moving up the timeline. Nova checked her watch. Nightshade won't be here in time. Then we improvise. Cade pointed to the fuel depot adjacent to the staging area. Create enough chaos and the auction gets postponed, maybe permanently. It was risky, potentially catastrophic, but Nova saw no alternative. They approached on foot, using the pre-dawn darkness as cover. The fuel depot's security was minimal. Who would attack a base's fuel supply? Nova set charges, while Cade accessed the depot's control systems. They had minutes at most before the next patrol rotation. Movement, Cade whispered. A figure approached through the shadows. Captain Imani, weapon drawn, but not aimed. Thought I might find you here. Nova tensed, ready for another betrayal. But Imani holstered her weapon. Pike's dirty. I've suspected for months but couldn't prove it. She held up a tablet. I've been tracking irregular vehicle movements, off-book fuel consumption, personnel assignments that don't make sense. It all points to him. Why should we trust you? Cade demanded. Because 10 minutes ago, Pike ordered me to eliminate both of you on sight. Said you were enemy agents. Imani's smile was sharp. I don't follow illegal orders, and I really don't like being lied to. Nova made a tactical decision. Help us stop the convoy. Then we'll share everything we have on Pike and the network. Deal. What's the plan? Controlled chaos. Nova finished placing the last charge. The depot blows, drawing all security. In the confusion, we disable the trucks and transmit the evidence to every major news outlet simultaneously. And Pike's mine. They synchronized watches. 2 minutes until the charges detonated. Nova and Imani moved toward the staging area, while Cade remained at the depot to ensure the distraction worked. The explosion, when it came, was spectacular. Fuel tanks erupted in sequence, fireballs rising into the pre-dawn sky. Every person in the staging area turned to look, including Pike. Alarms wailed across the base. Security teams scrambled toward the inferno. In the chaos, Nova reached the lead truck. She attached a GPS tracker and disabled the ignition system in seconds. Imani did the same to the second vehicle. They were heading for the third when Pike's voice cut through the noise. Don't move. He stood 10 feet away, pistol aimed at Nova's head. His expression held no surprise, only cold calculation. I should have known Chen couldn't handle you properly, he said. Your father had the same stubborn streak, same inability to accept reality. Reality? Nova turned slowly to face him. You mean the reality where you sell out American soldiers for money? I mean the reality where the system is broken beyond repair, where the only way to survive is to profit from its collapse. Pike's weapon didn't waver. Your father never understood that. He believed in honor-duty country. Look where it got him. It got him murdered by cowards too weak to face him directly. Pike's jaw tightened. He was going to expose operations that fund half the black ops in existence. Programs that keep America safe even if the methods are distasteful. Programs that line your pockets. Everyone's pockets. That's the point. The network is too big to stop. Kill me, and someone else takes my place. Expose the operation, and another one starts tomorrow. His finger tightened on the trigger. At least I'm offering you a choice. Join us or die like your father. Nova smiled. You're forgetting something. What's that? I'm not alone anymore. The red dot appeared on Pike's forehead a second before the shot. He crumpled the weapon, falling from nerveless fingers. Nightshade 6 materialized from the Shadow's rifle, still aimed. Clear, he said simply. Around the staging area, more figures emerged, the surviving members of her father's unit, the ones who'd been written off as dead or missing. They moved with lethal efficiency, securing the trucks and detaining the loading crews. The evidence? Nightshade asked. Nova handed over the laptop and drives. Everything. 5 years of trafficking, murder, conspiracy. Enough to bring them all down. And Chen still thinks I'm under her control, but not for long. As the sun rose over Camp Redwater, Nova stood among the captured weapons and arrested conspirators. The network that had killed her father was unraveling, but she knew Pike had been right about one thing. This was bigger than just one base, one commander, one operation. Her phone rang. Chen again. Nova answered. Director? What's happening there? Satellites show massive fires, vehicles disabled. Mission complete. The auction's been stopped. Pike's dead. Dead. I needed him alive for interrogation. He resisted arrest. Nova paused. But don't worry. I have everything we need. Files, recordings, photographs, including some interesting ones of you from 5 years ago. The silence stretched between them. I'm sending you coordinates, Nova continued. Come alone. We need to discuss your future with the agency. You're making a mistake, Nova. You don't understand the full picture. I understand enough. You chose career over my father's life. Now you get to choose again: confession and resignation, or exposure and prosecution. She hung up and turned to find Leo Han standing nearby, his uncle's arrest warrant in his hand. The young recruit looked broken but determined. I want to help, he said. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can prevent others from being used like I was. Nova studied him. The network recruits from military families, young people with access, but no real understanding of operational security. You could help us identify and protect them. Whatever it takes. As federal agents, real ones this time, flooded the base, Nova walked through the wreckage of the depot. The flames were dying now, leaving twisted metal and scorched earth. Like the phoenix of her call sign, she'd risen from the ashes of her father's death. But unlike the mythical bird, she wouldn't be alone for the next cycle. Cade approached, his face blackened with soot. The prosecutors will want everything. Testimony, evidence, names. They'll get it all. And after, when the trials are done and the network's exposed, Nova looked at the sunrise painting the desert gold. There are other networks, other betrayals, other soldiers who need justice. That's a lifetime of work. My father would say it's a lifetime of service. Her secure phone buzzed. Not Chen this time, but an unknown number. The message was simple. Your father would be proud. There's more work to be done. Interested. Nova typed back, always ready. Because the phoenix hadn't just risen once. It would rise as many times as necessary, burning away corruption wherever it hid. Camp Redwater was just the beginning of a larger fire, one that would purify the entire system or die trying. The ghost of Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Hale could rest now. His daughter had taken up his mission, and this time she wouldn't be walking into ambushes alone. The coordinates Chen sent led to an abandoned airfield 40 miles from Camp Redwater, the kind of place where deals went bad and bodies disappeared into the desert. Nova arrived first, positioning herself with clear sightlines and multiple exits. The laptop with all the evidence sat in her vehicle encrypted and uploaded to deadman switches across 3 continents. If anything happened to her, the world would know everything within hours. Chen's helicopter appeared at sunset, kicking up dust devils as it landed. She stepped out alone as instructed, but Nova's thermal scope picked up 2 more heat signatures remaining in the aircraft. Chen was never one to follow rules completely. "You came," Nova called out from her concealed position. Chen turned slowly, hands visible. "You have something of mine. I have evidence of treason. That belongs to the American people. You have fragments of a larger picture you can't possibly understand." Chen moved closer to Nova's voice, her expression calm, despite the circumstances. "Your father thought the same thing. Black and white, right and wrong. The world doesn't work that way." Nova emerged from cover weapon trained on Chen's center mass. "Explain." "The weapons trafficking the diverted shipments. Yes, it's all real. But it wasn't greed driving it. It was necessity." Chen stopped 20 feet away. "Every dollar generated funded operations Congress would never approve. Killing terrorists before they struck. Preventing nuclear proliferation. Saving lives through methods that would horrify voters. You're justifying murder and treason. I'm explaining reality. Your father's unit wasn't just randomly selected for elimination. They were about to inadvertently expose an operation that would have prevented a biological weapon from reaching New York. 50,000 people versus 12 soldiers. We made the calculation." Nova's finger tightened on the trigger. "You made the calculation. You decided my father was expendable." "Everyone's expendable, Nova. Even me. Even you." Chen pulled out a tablet showing a satellite feed. "Right now, 17 different terrorist cells are bidding on sarin gas components in Syria. The only reason we know about it is because we've been inside their networks for years, funded by operations like Pikes. There are legal ways to fund black ops. Legal ways that leave paper trails. Congressional oversight that leaks to foreign intelligence. By the time legal methods approve action, the threats have materialized." Chen took another step forward. "Kill me, expose the network, feel righteous about it. But know that you'll be responsible for every death that follows when our intelligence architecture collapses." The sound of approaching vehicles interrupted them. Multiple engines coming fast from different directions. Nova's tactical display showed at least 6 vehicles converging on their position. "Friends of yours?" Nova asked. Chen looked genuinely surprised. "No, I came alone as agreed." The vehicles burst over the ridge simultaneously, not military, but modified civilian trucks with mounted weapons. Cartel technical vehicles. Someone had leaked their location. "Move!" Nova shouted as the first rounds impacted around them. Chen dove behind a concrete barrier as Nova returned fire. The helicopter pilot tried to take off, but an RPG caught the tail rotor. The aircraft spun wildly before crashing in a ball of flame, taking Chen's backup with it. "Who knew about this meeting?" Nova demanded, ejecting a magazine and slamming home another. "Only my deputy director and—" Chen's face went pale. "Cade! You told Cade!" Nova's blood chilled. She had told him, trusting his story about investigating her father's death. But what if his investigation had a different purpose entirely? More vehicles appeared, surrounding them completely. A voice echoed across the desert, through a megaphone accented English confident. "Director Chen, Lieutenant Hale, thank you for gathering all the evidence in one place. Please surrender, and we'll make your deaths quick." Nova recognized the voice from intercepted communications her father had recorded. Dmitry Volkov, arms dealer. The man who'd actually supplied the weapons that killed her father's unit. But he was supposed to be in a Russian prison. 8 o'clock sniper, Chen whispered, spotting for Nova despite everything. Nova adjusted and fired. The muzzle flash from the ridge disappeared. They were fighting together now, survival overriding their conflict. Cade sold us both out, Chen said, between bursts of gunfire. He wasn't investigating the network. He was taking it over. The pieces clicked horribly into place. Cade had eliminated Pike not to stop the trafficking, but to remove competition. He'd played Nova perfectly, using her father's death and her need for justice to eliminate every obstacle to his control. A smoke grenade landed between them. Then another. The world disappeared into gray haze as figures moved through the smoke. Professional coordinated. Nova felt the dart hit her neck before she could react. Tranquilizer. High dose. Her vision blurred as she fell. She woke in darkness, hands zip-tied behind her back, mouth taped. The engine noise and road vibration told her she was in a vehicle, probably one of the trucks. Chen was beside her, also restrained but conscious. Through the canvas covering, Nova could hear voices. Cade was speaking Russian, negotiating with Volkov. Her Russian was good enough to understand they were discussing prices, not just for the weapons from Camp Redwater, but for her and Chen. Apparently, several intelligence agencies would pay well for the director of a CIA subdivision and the daughter of Marcus Hale. The truck stopped. Doors opened. Hands dragged them out into what looked like an abandoned mining facility, the kind of place that hadn't seen legitimate business in decades, perfect for the kind of business happening now. Inside the main building, the stolen weapons were already being cataloged and divided. Buyers from around the world examined the merchandise. She recognized faces from terrorist watch lists, cartel leadership, even representatives from hostile governments. This wasn't just an auction. It was a convention of America's enemies. Cade stood at the center of it all, no longer playing the harsh drill sergeant. He wore expensive tactical gear and moved with the confidence of someone who'd just won everything. "Nova," he said pleasantly, pulling the tape from her mouth. "I really did admire your father. He was the only one who came close to stopping this. If he'd been slightly less honorable, slightly more willing to compromise, he might have succeeded." "You were working for Volkov the whole time." "Working with, not for. Important distinction." Cade gestured to the assembled criminals. Pike thought small millions in diverted weapons. Chen thought she was saving the world with her gray operations. But the real money, the real power, comes from playing all sides simultaneously. "My father trusted you. Your father investigated me, found inconsistencies in my record payments that didn't match my salary. He was getting close, so we arranged his elimination." Cade's expression held no remorse. "Though I did argue against killing the entire unit. Wasteful. But Volkov insisted on sending a message." Nova tested her restraints. The zip ties were tight, but not impossible. She needed time and distraction. "The evidence I gathered, you wanted me to find it all." "Every bit of it. You did excellent work, by the way. Much more thorough than your father. The recordings, the financial trails, the photographs, all in one convenient package that I can now sell to the highest bidder or use for blackmail." Cade pulled out the laptop Nova had thought was secure. "Your encryption was impressive, but I had your biometrics from the moment you arrived at Redwater. Your fingerprints from the equipment, retinal scans from the security cameras, even your DNA from the blood sample during your medical check." Chen spoke for the first time. "The agency will notice I'm missing. They'll mobilize everyone. They'll find your bodies in the burned helicopter victims of a cartel ambush. Tragic, but not unexpected given the dangerous nature of your work." Cade checked his watch. "The buyers have 2 hours to complete their purchases. Then this place burns along with any evidence we were here. He left them under guard, 2 men with automatic weapons, who looked bored but competent. Nova caught Chen's eye and saw the same calculation there. 2 guards, multiple hostiles in the building, no backup coming. But they'd both survived worse odds. Nova had been working on the zip ties, since waking using a technique her father had taught her, small, repetitive movements that gradually stretched the plastic. She felt them giving way, just as one guard stepped outside for a cigarette. The remaining guard was checking his phone, distracted for just a second. Nova moved the zip ties, snapping as she rolled forward. The guard looked up too late. Her boot caught him in the throat, crushing his larynx. He dropped, gasping silently. She grabbed his knife and cut Chen free, then took his weapon. Chen picked up his radio and keyed it twice the all-clear signal that would buy them minutes. "We need those weapons destroyed," Chen whispered. "If they leave here." "I know." Nova checked the weapons magazine. "Volkov's here for more than just money. He wants something specific." They moved through the facility's shadows, avoiding the main areas where buyers congregated. Through grimy windows, Nova could see Cade demonstrating some of the more exotic weapons, a portable EMP device, chemical detection systems, and something in a sealed case that made even the hardened criminals step back. "Biological samples," Chen breathed. "From Fort Detrick. Those went missing 3 months ago." Before Nova could respond, alarms shrieked through the building. Their escape had been discovered. Voices shouted in multiple languages as armed men scattered to search. "The fuel depot." Nova pointed to massive tanks visible through a doorway. "This whole place is running on generators, diesel everywhere." "That's suicide. We're still inside." "Not if we time it right." They fought their way toward the depot, Chen proving she hadn't lost her field skills, despite years behind a desk. Bodies dropped as they moved with lethal efficiency, 2 professionals who'd found common cause in survival. Cade's voice echoed over intercoms. 10 million to whoever brings them to me alive. 20 if they're still capable of screaming. The bounty changed everything. Now they weren't facing disciplined security, but a mob of competing criminals all wanting the prize. Chaos erupted as different factions turned on each other, each trying to claim the bounty first. In the confusion, Nova reached the depot. The tanks were massive, industrial-sized, connected by a spiderweb of pipes and valves. She started opening valves, diesel fuel spurting across the floor. 3 minutes until the fumes reach critical concentration, she told Chen. Cade won't let the weapons burn. He'll evacuate them first. I'm counting on it. Sure enough, Cade's voice came again, urgent now. Priority evacuation. Move the merchandise to the secondary site. Leave the buyers to handle the women. Trucks roared to life outside. The weapons were being loaded, moved to safety. But Nova had expected this. During their fight through the building, she'd grabbed something specific. The remote detonators from the EMP devices reprogrammed for a different purpose. When those trucks reach 1 mile from here, they're going to have problems, she said. Chen understood immediately. You rigged them. Every single one. Small charges, just enough to disable the vehicles and scatter the weapons across the desert. Easy for recovery teams to find and secure. The fuel fumes were thickening, making breathing difficult. They needed to leave, but the main exits were blocked by dozens of armed men, still hunting for them. Then Nova heard something impossible: helicopter rotors. Multiple aircraft approaching fast. Chen grabbed a radio from a dead guard and switched to military emergency frequencies. This is Director Chen, authentication code Whiskey 77. Immediate extraction required, coordinates follows. A familiar voice responded. Nightshade 6. Phoenix, that you causing all this trouble? Nova grabbed the radio. Bit busy right now. The building's about to blow. Then you better get to the roof. 60 seconds. They ran, taking the stairs, 3 at a time. Behind them, someone fired a cigarette, probably trying to light a cigarette in the fuel-rich air. The explosion started in the depot and cascaded through the building's lower levels. Fire raced up the stairwell behind them as they burst onto the roof. The helicopters were already there, not just one, but 4 Black Hawks filled with operators. Ropes dropped. Nova grabbed one, Chen another, and they lifted off as the building erupted beneath them. The blast wave rocked the aircraft, but they climbed clear. Below, secondary explosions marked the ammunition cooking off. $1-million weapons became expensive fireworks. The criminals who'd survived scattered into the desert, where ground teams were already waiting to collect them. "Cade," Nova asked Nightshade. In the wind, his vehicle got clear before the blast. Nova's phone buzzed, impossible since it should have been destroyed. She looked at it to find a message from an unknown number. "This isn't over. Your father's death was business. Now it's personal. K." Chen read it over her shoulder. "He'll come for you. Let him try." As the helicopter banked toward Camp Redwater, Chen pulled out a document. "Your father's real file. Everything we kept classified." Nova read through it as the desert passed below. Her father hadn't just been investigating the weapons network. He'd been trying to reform it from within to turn the gray operations legitimate. His plan would have worked, except someone leaked it to criminals like Volkov, who stood to lose everything if the illegal trafficking stopped. "Cade was the leak," Nova said. "We suspected, but couldn't prove it. Your father was getting close, so Cade accelerated the timeline." Chen met her eyes. "I didn't order your father's death, Nova. I tried to warn him, but the communication was intercepted. By the time I could act, it was too late." Nova wanted to disbelieve, but the documents supported Chen's story. Encrypted messages, warning orders that never arrived, evacuation plans that came minutes too late. "You still chose the network over justice afterward." "I chose to prevent the network from killing more people. Sometimes that meant working within it." Chen pulled out her resignation letter already signed. "But that ends now. The network dies today one way or another." The helicopters landed at Camp Redwater to find the base in full lockdown. Federal agents, real ones, were everywhere. The recruits Nova had trained with watched from behind barriers as she stepped out, no longer pretending to be weak. Leo Han broke from the crowd and ran to her. "They're saying Cade was the real traitor, that he killed Pike to take over the network." "It's true." "Then I helped him. Every piece of information I gave him, thinking I was helping investigate." The young man's voice broke. "You were manipulated by professionals. What matters is what you do next." Captain Imani approached with a tablet. "Satellite tracking has Cade's vehicle heading for the Mexican border. He'll be across in 20 minutes. Nova looked at the assembled forces, military federal agents, the survivors of her father's unit, all waiting for her decision. "Let him go," she said, surprising everyone. Chen frowned. "He knows too much. He has resources, connections. And I have his entire network mapped. Every contact, every safe house, every bank account." Nova held up a drive she'd taken from the facility. Cade's personal files. He was arrogant enough to bring them to the auction. Now we know everyone he's worked with for the past decade. Understanding dawned on Chen's face. "You want to use him as bait." "I want to end this properly. Arresting Cade means a trial, lawyers, maybe a deal. But if he runs, he'll lead us to every roach hiding in the walls." Nova turned to Nightshade. "Can your team handle a long hunt? We've been waiting 5 years for this." As the sun set over Camp Redwater, for the 3rd time since Nova had arrived, she stood where her journey had begun, at the pull-up bars, where she'd pretended to fail. The base would recover. The weapons network was shattered. The truth about her father's death was finally known. But Cade was right about one thing. This wasn't over. It had evolved from a mission of justice into something more personal. He'd used her father's memory as a weapon, turned her need for truth into a tool for his ambitions. That required a reckoning. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo Cade standing at the Mexican border, giving a mocking salute to the surveillance drone he knew was watching. Below it, text, "Your move, Phoenix." Nova typed back, "See you soon." Because the Phoenix didn't just rise from ashes. It hunted those who lit the fire. The Mexican desert looked different through night vision goggles. Everything rendered in shades of green that made the landscape seem alien. Nova lay prone on a ridge, watching Cade's safe house through her scope. He'd been there for 3 days, making calls, moving money, rebuilding his network with frightening efficiency. Every conversation was recorded, every visitor photographed, every transaction tracked. They were letting him run just long enough to expose everyone still hidden. Movement. Nightshade whispered beside her. 2 vehicles approaching from the south. Nova adjusted her scope. The vehicles were expensive, armored, the kind drug cartels used for high-value meetings. But the men who stepped out weren't cartel. She recognized one immediately from intelligence photos, Colonel Marcus Hahn's replacement at Pentagon Logistics, a man named David Sterling, who was supposedly clean. "Got you," she breathed, photographing Sterling embracing Cade like an old friend. They entered the safe house together, and Nova's directional microphone picked up fragments of conversation. Sterling was offering Cade a new identity, a clean record, and most importantly, access to a different weapons pipeline, one that ran through NATO allies instead of American bases. "Phoenix, we have a problem." Chen's voice crackled through her earpiece. She was stationed at a mobile command post 5 miles away, coordinating the surveillance operation, despite her official resignation. "Satellite just picked up a convoy moving your way. Military vehicles, but not Mexican." Nova checked her tablet. The thermal signatures showed 8 vehicles, tactical formation, approaching fast. "How long?" 6 minutes. "That's not enough time." Nova started packing her gear. "Nightshade, we need to..." The first shot took Nightshade in the chest. Body armor saved his life, but the impact knocked him off the ridge. Nova rolled as the second shot sparked off the rocks where her head had been. Sniper positioned somewhere she hadn't checked. Cade had known they were watching and set his own trap. She grabbed Nightshade and dragged him behind cover as more shots peppered their position. Blood seeped through his tactical vest where the bullet had found a gap. Not immediately fatal, but he needed medical attention soon. Chen were compromised. Nightshade's hit. Extraction team en route. 2 minutes. 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours. The convoy was almost on them, and now Cade's men were pouring out of the safe house armed and coordinating their approach. They'd walked right into it. Nova made a tactical decision. She pulled out a flare and fired it straight up emergency signal that would bring every asset running, but also revealed her exact position. Sometimes the only way out of an ambush was straight through it. The sniper fired again, but she was already moving, half-carrying Nightshade down the reverse slope. Her muscles screamed with the effort, but adrenaline kept her going. Behind them, vehicles roared closer. They reached a dry riverbed just as the first truck crested the ridge. Nova pushed Nightshade into a depression and covered him with her body as automatic weapons fire erupted overhead. Bullets whined through the air, impacting all around them. Then she heard something that made her blood freeze. Dogs. Attack dogs by the sound of their barking. Cade wasn't just trying to kill them, he was hunting them. "Can you move?" she asked Nightshade. "Negative, but I can shoot." He pressed a pistol into her hand. "Go. Complete the mission." "I'm not leaving you." "That's an order, Lieutenant." Before she could argue, the extraction helicopter appeared over the ridge, door guns blazing. The sudden suppressive fire sent Cade's men diving for cover. Ropes dropped, and Nova saw Leo Han fast roping down with a medical kit. The young recruit had volunteered for the operation, desperate to atone for his uncle's crimes. "Get him up!" Nova shouted, helping load Nightshade onto a stretcher. "What about you?" "I'm finishing this." She ran toward the safe house, using the helicopter's covering fire to cross open ground. Cade would try to escape in the chaos. She knew his patterns, now had studied every operation he'd ever run. He always had 3 exit strategies, and she'd identified 2 of them. The third revealed itself when part of the safe house floor exploded upward. An escape tunnel, probably carved by drug smugglers years ago. Cade emerged 50 yards from the building, Sterling right behind him. They ran for one of the armored vehicles. Nova intercepted them, her shot taking out the vehicle's front tire. It slewed sideways, and Cade rolled out, returning fire. Sterling tried to run, but tripped, or was tripped. Nova saw Imani materialize from nowhere, having infiltrated from the opposite direction. "Sterling's secure," Imani reported. Cade backed toward another vehicle, his weapon trained on Nova. "You should have stayed dead like your father." "He's not dead," Nova said, advancing steadily. "Every time someone stands up to corruption, he lives. Every time someone chooses duty over profit, he lives." "Poetic bullshit." Cade fired, but his magazine was empty. He threw the weapon aside and pulled a knife. "Fine. Let's do this the old way." They circled each other in the desert dust. Cade was bigger, stronger, with decades more experience. But Nova had something he didn't purpose beyond personal gain. He lunged first, the blade slicing through air where she'd been a second before. Her counterstrike caught his wrist, but he twisted free, backhanding her across the face. She tasted blood, but kept moving, using her smaller size to stay inside his reach. The knife flashed again. This time, she couldn't completely avoid it. The blade drew a line of fire across her ribs, but she trapped his arm in the same motion, bringing her knee up hard. Cade grunted and tried to pull back, but she held on, hammering strikes into his kidney. He dropped the knife, but grabbed her throat with his free hand, lifting her off the ground. Black spots exploded across her vision as he squeezed. In desperation, she grabbed the only weapon available, a handful of desert sand, and drove it into his eyes. Cade screamed and released her. She dropped, gasping, and swept his legs. He fell hard, and she was on him immediately, securing an armbar that even his strength couldn't break. "Yield!" she demanded. "Never!" He struggled harder, and she felt his shoulder starting to separate. "This won't bring your father back," he snarled. "No, but it'll stop you from creating more orphans." She applied final pressure. His shoulder dislocated with an audible pop, and he screamed again. This time, when she released him, he stayed down. Federal agents swarmed the scene, securing both Cade and Sterling. Chen arrived in an armored vehicle, surveying the carnage with professional detachment. "Nightshade?" Nova asked. "Stable. Medics say he'll make it." Chen looked at Cade, being loaded into custody. "You could have killed him." "Death would have been mercy. Now he gets to face justice. You know he'll try to make a deal, trade information for reduced sentences. Let him. Every deal he makes exposes more of the network." Nova pressed a hand to her bleeding side. "Besides, I recorded everything. Sterling's confession, the NATO connection, all of it." Chen smiled slightly. "Your father would be proud." "Stop saying that. I know what he'd be proud of." They returned to the command post to find surprising news. The operation had triggered something unexpected. Whistleblowers from within various agencies were coming forward, inspired by the exposure of the network. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had imagined, but so did the number of people willing to fight it. Leo Han sat with Nightshade, monitoring his vitals. The older operator was conscious now, grimacing but stable. "Hell of a first operation, kid," Nightshade told Leo. "I just want to make things right." You can't change the past, Nova said, entering the medical tent. But you can shape the future. Her secure phone rang. Unknown number, but she recognized the encryption pattern, someone from inside the Pentagon. Lieutenant Hale. This is General Morrison, Joint Chiefs. We've been monitoring your operation. Nova tensed. Morrison was either about to shut them down or offer support. Sir, your father served under me in Afghanistan. Good man. Principled. A pause. I've been watching the network grow for years, unable to act without proof. You've given us that proof. What are you saying, General? I'm saying we're forming a task force, official sanctioned with full resources. We want you to lead it. Nova looked at the team around her chin, despite her resignation still coordinating intelligence. Nightshade wounded, but unbroken. Imani proven in fire. Even Leo young but determined to redeem himself. I'll need to choose my own team. Done. And operational independence. No congressional oversight that can be compromised. That's irregular. So was murdering my father's unit. Sir. Another pause. You'll report directly to me, nobody else. Then we accept. She hung up to find everyone staring at her. Official sanction, Chen asked, reading the situation immediately. Full task force, unlimited resources. Our job is to hunt down every remnant of the network everywhere in the world. Nightshade tried to sit up, winced, and settled for a grin. Phoenix Force. That's what I'm calling it. Over the next hour, reports flooded in. The arrests had triggered a cascade effect, criminals turning on each other, officials trying to get ahead of prosecution by confessing first. In Washington, 3 senators were arrested. In Brussels, a NATO general was detained. In Moscow, unusually, the FSB announced they'd uncovered their own network of weapons traffickers connected to Cade's operation. But Nova knew this was just the beginning. Cade's laptop recovered from the safe house contained encrypted files that would take weeks to fully decode. Preliminary analysis showed connections to trafficking networks in 43 countries, involving everything from weapons to drugs to human trafficking. It's too big, Leo said, overwhelmed by the scope. How do we fight something this vast? One operation at a time, Nova replied. One criminal at a time. One victory at a time. Her phone buzzed. This time, it was a video message. She opened it carefully, running security protocols. The screen showed a man she didn't recognize. Middle Eastern features, expensive suit sitting in what looked like a Dubai penthouse. Lieutenant Hale, I am Rashid Al-Zayed. You've destroyed my American operations, cost me hundreds of millions. This is unacceptable. He leaned forward. I have something you want. Someone, actually. The camera panned to show another figure bound and hooded. The hood was removed, revealing a battered but alive face that made Nova's heart stop. Marcus Hale, her father. Older, scarred, but undeniably alive. Impossible, she breathed. Your father survived the ambush, Al-Zayed continued. Barely. We've kept him as insurance for 5 years, knowing eventually someone would come looking for answers. Now you have a choice. Dissolve your task force or watch him die. You have 72 hours to decide. The video ended. Nova stood frozen, her world tilting off its axis. Everything she'd believed, everything that had driven her, had been built on a lie. Her father was alive. Chen took the phone, analyzing the video. It could be fake, deep fake technology. It's not. Nova pointed to a scar on the man's hand. That's from when I was 7. I accidentally cut him while he was teaching me knife fighting. It's him. The room erupted in discussion, but Nova barely heard it. Her father alive. Prisoner for 5 years, while she'd mourned him, while she'd hunted his killers. the mission had just become infinitely more complex. "We can't dissolve the task force," Imani said. "Thousands of lives depend on stopping these networks." "But we can't let him die," Leo argued. "Not after everything." Nova looked at each of them, her team, her new family forged in fire and purpose. Then, she looked at the photo of her father's unit. She still carried the men who'd died, believing they served something greater than themselves. "We don't dissolve, and we don't let him die." She turned to Chen. "How quickly can we get to Dubai?" 18 hours with military transport. "Too long. Al-Zayed will move him the moment we mobilize." Nova studied the video again, looking for clues. "But he made a mistake. He showed us proof of life, which means he needs my father alive for leverage. So we give him what he wants, a meeting, face to face." She looked at Nightshade, still recovering. "How soon can you travel?" "Now, if needed." "Good, because we're going to Dubai, not to negotiate, to rescue him and take down Al-Zayed's entire operation." Chen frowned. "That's suicide. Al-Zayed owns half the security forces there." "Then we'll need to be creative." Nova pulled up satellite images of Dubai. "Imani, I need everything on Al-Zayed's holdings, properties, businesses, security protocols. Leo, coordinate with international assets. Find out who else wants Al-Zayed gone. He has to have enemies." "What about Cade?" Chen asked. Nova smiled grimly. "Bring him." "What?" "Al-Zayed was one of Cade's buyers. He knows the security, the personnel, maybe even where my father's being held. Offer him a deal, full cooperation on this operation, in exchange for minimum security prison instead of Supermax." It was a devil's bargain, but Nova was learning that sometimes you had to work with devils to fight demons. Her father had tried to stay pure, uncompromised, and it had allegedly gotten him killed. She wouldn't make the same mistake. As the team prepared for deployment, Nova stood outside, looking at the stars over the desert, the same stars her father had taught her to navigate by when she was young. Somewhere under these same stars, he was alive and waiting. Her phone rang one more time. "Al-Zayed." "Have you decided?" "Yes, I'll meet you, but I choose the location." "You're hardly in a position." "I have your financial records from Cade's files. Every transaction, every bribe, every murder you've ordered. You meet me where I say, or I release everything to Interpol and the Dubai authorities simultaneously." Silence. Then, "Where?" "The Burj Khalifa. Public enough that you can't just kill me, private enough for negotiation. Tomorrow night." "Come alone." "Obviously." She hung up, knowing she was lying. She wouldn't be alone. Phoenix Force would be with her, and they were about to show Al-Zayed why threatening family was the worst mistake he could make. The war against the network had become personal in a way she'd never imagined. Her father wasn't just a memory to avenge, he was a life to save. And Nova would burn down half of Dubai if that's what it took to bring him home. As transport aircraft prepared for departure, she gathered her team for final briefing. Cade sat in shackles, sullen but attentive. He knew his only chance at survival lay in cooperation. "This is a rescue operation," Nova began, "but it's also an opportunity. Al-Zayed controls the Middle Eastern arm of the weapons network. Take him down, and we cripple their operations from Pakistan to Morocco." "And your father," Imani asked, "is the priority, but not the only objective." Nova looked each of them in the eye. "We're going to save him, destroy Al-Zayed, and send a message to every trafficker, every corrupt official, every enemy of justice. Phoenix Force is coming, and we don't stop until the job is done." Nightshade raised his good arm in salute, and the others followed. Even Cade nodded slightly, recognizing the determination that had defeated him, now turned toward a common enemy. The aircraft lifted off into the night, carrying them toward Dubai, and a confrontation 5 years in the making. Nova didn't know what she'd find there, whether her father would be the same man who'd raised her, whether Al-Zayed's fortress could be breached, whether her team would all survive. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The phoenix was rising one more time, and this time it would soar all the way to the truth. Dubai's skyline glittered like a circuit board against the night, each building a component in the machine of commerce and corruption that Al-Zayed had helped build. Nova stood on the observation deck of a neighboring tower, watching the Burj Khalifa through high-powered binoculars. Every floor, every access point, every security camera had been mapped by her team over the past 18 hours. "He's moving," Imani's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Penthouse elevator just activated." Al-Zayed was taking the bait, coming to the meeting point himself rather than sending representatives. His arrogance would be his downfall. Nova adjusted the concealed recording device woven into her jacket, then felt the weight of the ceramic knife hidden along her spine, undetectable by standard metal detectors, but sharp enough to cut through zip ties or throats, depending on need. In the mobile command center, 3 blocks away, Chen coordinated the operation's moving pieces. Leo Han monitored communication intercepts, while Nightshade, despite doctor's orders, supervised tactical positioning from a wheelchair. Even Cage, shackled to a desk, provided reluctant but valuable intelligence about Al-Zayed's security protocols. "Remember," Chen said, "the moment we confirm your father's location teams move in, you just have to keep Al-Zayed talking long enough." Nova took the express elevator to the Burj's 148th floor, where Al-Zayed had reserved the entire luxury lounge. His security team searched her thoroughly, but professionally missing the ceramic blade as expected. They also missed the subcutaneous tracker injected under her skin that morning. Painful but necessary insurance. Al-Zayed waited by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Dubai spreading beneath him like a conquered kingdom. He was younger than expected, maybe 40, with the kind of manicured appearance that suggested violence had always been outsourced rather than personal. When he turned, his smile was cold as Arctic wind. "Lieutenant Hale, you look just like your father. Same defiant eyes. Where is he?" "Safe. For now." Al-Zayed gestured to a chair, but Nova remained standing. "You know he talked about you constantly for the first year, his brilliant daughter following in his footsteps. By year 3, he'd stopped talking at all." Nova's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "Proof of life. Current. Or this conversation ends." Al-Zayed produced a tablet showing a live feed. Her father sat in a concrete cell thinner than she remembered, but alert, reading a book. The timestamp was current, the video definitely real-time. Nova memorized every detail, the wall texture, the door design, the air vent pattern. Somewhere, Chen's facial recognition software would be analyzing the guard who briefly appeared on screen. "Satisfied?" Al-Zayed asked. "What do you want?" "Simple. The task force disbands. The evidence disappears. The arrests stop." He poured himself whiskey from a crystal decanter. "In exchange, your father goes free, and you receive $10 million for your trouble." "Not enough." Al-Zayed raised an eyebrow. "Greed. From the righteous daughter." "Not greed. Economics." Nova moved to the window, knowing it would make his security nervous. "Your network generates approximately $300 million annually. My task force has cost you twice that in seized assets and interrupted operations. $10 million is insulting. Name your price." $50 million. And safe passage for my entire team." Al-Zayed laughed. "You're definitely Marcus's daughter. He tried to negotiate too near the end, offered to work for us if we spared his unit." The arms dealer's expression hardened. "We refused, obviously. Loyalty bought is loyalty that can be bought again. Nova's hand drifted toward her concealed blade, but she forced herself to remain calm. In her ear, Chen whispered, "Got him. Your father's in a shipping container at Jebel Ali port, sending coordinates to tactical teams. I need time to consider your terms," Nova said to Al-Zayed, "and I want to speak to my father." "Impossible." "Then we have no deal." She turned to leave. "Wait." Al-Zayed pulled out his phone, spoke rapid Arabic. 5 minutes, no more." They took a private elevator down to a parking garage where an armored Mercedes waited. Nova counted turns, memorized the route, even though she knew Chen was tracking her. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the port, massive containers stacked like building blocks under harsh industrial lighting. The security here was different, professional mercenaries with military-grade equipment. Al-Zayed led her through the maze of containers to one that looked identical to thousands of others, except for the sophisticated lock system and hidden ventilation unit. Inside the container had been converted into a prison cell. And there, sitting on a narrow cot, was Marcus Hale. He looked up as they entered, and his eyes, those same eyes Nova saw in the mirror every morning, widened in shock. "Nova." His voice was hoarse from disuse. "No, you can't be here. It's a trap." "Hello, Dad." She kept her voice steady even as her heart shattered and rebuilt itself. "I came to bring you home." Marcus stood unsteadily, 5 years of captivity, evident in his careful movements. But when Al-Zayed's men tried to stop him from approaching her, he moved with sudden violence, dropping one with an elbow strike before the others restrained him. "Still have some fight left," Al-Zayed observed. "Perhaps I should have been less gentle." Nova studied her father's condition, malnourished, but not broken, injured, but not crippled. They'd kept him functional, probably as slave labor for their operations, given his expertise. The scars on his hands weren't just from the ambush, but from years of forced work. 5 minutes, Al-Zayed reminded them. Marcus gripped her hands through the bars of his cell. "Nova, listen carefully. The network is bigger than you know. Al-Zayed is middle management. The real power." "Enough," Al-Zayed interrupted. "Save the reunions for after our deal is complete." But Marcus had already passed something to Nova, a tiny piece of paper pressed into her palm during their handshake. She concealed it smoothly, years of training making the motion invisible. "I need proof you'll honor the deal," Nova told Al-Zayed. "Release him now and I'll transfer the evidence to you personally." "You think me a fool. The moment he's free, your task force storms this place." "They already know where we are," Nova said simply. "I'm sure you've noticed the surveillance drones overhead, the boats that happen to arrive in the harbor, the maintenance crews that aren't really maintaining anything." Al-Zayed's phone rang. He answered, his face paling as he listened. Through the connection, Nova could hear gunfire and explosions. His mercenaries were under attack at multiple locations, simultaneously: warehouses, safe houses, even his palatial home. "You lied," he snarled at Nova. "I learned from the best. Cade sends his regards, by the way. He was very helpful in identifying your assets." Al-Zayed pulled a gun, pointing it at Marcus. "Then you can watch your father die." Again, the shot was impossibly loud in the metal container, but it wasn't Al-Zayed's gun that fired. Nova's ceramic knife, thrown with perfect accuracy, had severed the tendons in his gun hand. The weapon clattered away as he screamed, clutching his bleeding wrist. Chaos erupted. Al-Zayed's security rushed in, but so did Phoenix Force, breaching from multiple points. The firefight was brief, but intense, the container's metal walls sparking with ricochets. Nova covered her father's body with her own, as Nightshade wounded, but Mobile provided covering fire from the entrance. "Package secure," Imani called out, tossing Nova the keys to her father's cell. The lock clicked open, and for the first time in 5 years, Marcus Hale stepped into relative freedom. He immediately grabbed a fallen mercenary's weapon muscle memory intact, despite his ordeal. "We need to move." Chen's voice came over comms. "Local authorities are responding. 2 minutes to extraction." They fought their way through the port father and daughter, moving in perfect synchronization, despite never having operated together. Marcus might have been weakened, but his tactical instincts remained sharp. He identified threats Nova missed covered angles she couldn't see. The extraction point was a cargo ship flagged under diplomatic immunity. General Morrison had pulled significant strings. As they boarded, Al-Zayed's remaining forces converged on their position. The ship's defensive systems, military grade and fully authorized, responded with devastating effect. Only after they were in international waters did Nova finally allow herself to embrace her father properly. He held her tightly, both of them crying silently for all the years lost, all the pain endured. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "I thought I was too for a while." Marcus pulled back to look at her. "But I heard rumors. A ghost operative taking down trafficking networks. They called her Phoenix. I knew it had to be you." Nova showed him the piece of paper he'd passed her. Written in their family's private code were coordinates and a name, Prometheus, the real head of the network. "He's the one who ordered the ambush," Marcus explained as the team gathered around. "Al-Zayed, Pike, even Volkov, they all answer to him. Former CIA went rogue 15 years ago. He built this entire network." Chen's face had gone pale. "Prometheus is a myth, a boogeyman story to scare junior analysts." "He's real," Marcus insisted. "I've seen him, spoke with him. He offered me a position in his organization if I helped optimize their operations. When I refused," he gestured to his scars. Nova looked at her assembled team, wounded, exhausted, but victorious. They'd rescued her father, destroyed Al-Zayed's operation, and seized terabytes of intelligence from his servers. But the mission had revealed a larger war still to be fought. "General Morrison needs to know," she said. "The task force continues, but now we have a real target." Cade, still shackled, but having proven his intelligence value, spoke up. "Prometheus won't be like Al-Zayed. He doesn't make mistakes, doesn't show himself. You'll need someone who thinks like him." "Someone like you?" Nova asked. "I want full immunity and witness protection." "You'll get minimum security and the possibility of parole in 10 years. Final offer." Cade considered, then nodded. "Deal." As the ship headed toward friendly waters, Nova stood with her father on the deck, watching the sun rise over the ocean. The mission that had begun with her pretending to be weak at Camp Redwater had led here to this moment of reunion and revelation. "Your scar," Marcus said, noticing the surgery mark that had given her away to Pike. "When did—" "The ambush. I was the 17th casualty, the one who supposedly died en route to the hospital." Nova touched the raised tissue. "Chen saved my life, gave me a new identity, trained me to hunt the network. I thought it was for justice. Now I realize it was also guilt. She was following orders, trying to prevent a biological attack. 50,000 lives. I know. She told me." Nova met her father's eyes. "Would you have made the same choice, sacrificed the unit to save the city?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. That's why I was never meant for that level of command. Too much conscience, they said. Not enough pragmatism." Leo Han approached hesitantly. "Sir Lieutenant Colonel Hale, I wanted to apologize. My uncle's actions, my role in—" "You're not responsible for your family's crimes," Marcus said firmly. "Nova tells me you've been instrumental in exposing the network. That takes courage." "And stupidity," Leo admitted. "But I'm learning the difference between blind trust and earned loyalty." The ship's communication system crackled to life. General Morrison's voice filled the bridge. Phoenix Force, outstanding work. Al-Zayed's entire network is collapsing. Arrests across 12 countries and counting. Sir, Nova responded, we have actionable intelligence on a higher target. Codename Prometheus. There was a long pause. That's above my clearance level, Lieutenant. But I'm elevating your task force authorization. Whatever resources you need, they're yours. After Morrison signed off, the team gathered for debriefing. Marcus provided everything he knew about Prometheus, approximate age, operational patterns, known associates. Combined with the intelligence from Al-Zayed's servers, a picture emerged of a shadow organization that made their previous targets look like street dealers. He has people everywhere, Marcus explained. Government military intelligence agencies, even some judges and prosecutors. That's how he stayed hidden for so long. Then we can't trust official channels, Nova decided. Phoenix Force operates independently. We report only to Morrison, and even then only what's necessary. Chen, who'd been quiet since the revelation about Prometheus, finally spoke. You'll need someone inside the intelligence community. Someone who knows the players but isn't compromised. My resignation can be delayed. I'll work both sides, official liaison and underground operative. Chen met Nova's gaze. I owe your father that much. You owe me nothing, Marcus said. You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. I would have understood if I'd known. As the ship approached port, Nova felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. The celebration of her father's rescue was tempered by the knowledge of what lay ahead. Prometheus had resources that dwarfed Al-Zayed's connections, that reached into the highest levels of power, and 15 years of operational security that had kept him hidden from the world's best intelligence agencies. But Phoenix Force had something Prometheus didn't expect, a team forged in betrayal and reborn in purpose. Marcus Hale, the strategist, who'd almost exposed the network once before. Chen, with her intelligence connections and need for redemption. Nightshade and his operators loyal beyond death. Imani, brilliant and uncompromising. Leo, young, but determined to prove himself. Even Cade, whose criminal expertise would be invaluable in predicting Prometheus's moves. We'll need a base of operations, Nightshade said. Somewhere off the grid. I know a place, Marcus offered. An abandoned CIA training facility in Alaska. Officially decommissioned, but the infrastructure's still there. Satellite uplinks, armory, even an airstrip. Alaska, Leo grimaced. From desert to tundra. Prometheus won't look for us there, Nova said. And isolation means security. As they docked at a military port under heavy security, media helicopters circled overhead. The story of Al-Zayed's takedown was already breaking. Worldwide arms dealer, captured trafficking network, exposed unnamed special forces team credited with the operation. But Nova knew the real story was just beginning. That night, in a secure facility, as her father underwent medical evaluation, Nova finally read through all the intelligence they'd gathered. Financial records showed payments totaling in the billions flowing through shell companies and cryptocurrency exchanges, weapons shipments that could arm entire armies, and most disturbing references to something called Project Prometheus, not the man, but an operation he was planning. Marcus, released from medical with a clean bill of health despite his ordeal, joined her in reviewing the files. Look at these dates, he said, pointing to a pattern in the shipments. Everything's accelerating toward next month. September 15th, Nova noted. It's mentioned in multiple communications. That's the UN General Assembly. Every world leader in one place. The implications were staggering. Whatever Prometheus was planning, it involved the highest levels of international power. They had less than 4 weeks to identify and stop a plot that had been years in the making. Nova's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, her blood chilled. It was a photo of her and her father at the port taken from a distance with a sniper's scope overlay. The message read, "Congratulations on the reunion. Enjoy what time you have left. P." Prometheus knew who they were, where they were, and wasn't afraid to let them know it. The hunter had become the hunted. But Nova didn't feel fear. She felt the same cold determination that had carried her through Camp Redwater, through the investigation, through every betrayal and revelation. Prometheus had made the same mistake as all the others he'd threatened her family. She showed the message to her father, who smiled grimly. He's scared. For the first time in 15 years, someone poses a real threat to him. Then we press the advantage, Nova decided. She gathered the team, showing them the message. Prometheus just revealed his first weakness, ego. He couldn't resist taunting us. That means he's monitoring our communications, our movements. So we use that against him. Over the next hours, they crafted a deception plan. False communications about their next moves, misleading intelligence reports, even staged arguments among team members to suggest fractures in their unity. All of it designed to make Prometheus overconfident, to draw him out of hiding. As dawn broke over the secure facility, Phoenix Force prepared to depart for Alaska and their new base of operations. Nova stood with her father, watching their team load equipment with military precision. "I'm proud of you," Marcus said quietly. "You've become everything I hoped and more. I learned from the best. No, you learned from my mistakes and became better." He put his hand on her shoulder. "The network took 5 years from us. Don't let hunting Prometheus take the rest. Promise me when this is over, you'll have a life beyond the mission." Nova thought of all the things she'd sacrificed: relationships, normal experiences, the simple peace of not looking over her shoulder. But she also thought of all the lives saved, the criminals stopped, the justice delivered. "When Prometheus is stopped, I'll consider it," she said. "That's not a promise. It's the best I can offer." They boarded the military transport that would take them to Alaska, to a new chapter in their war against the network. As the aircraft climbed into the morning sky, Nova allowed herself one moment of complete honesty. The mission that had started as vengeance for her father's death had become something greater, a calling to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to stand against corruption wherever it hid. The Phoenix had risen from the ashes of tragedy, been tested in the fires of betrayal, and emerged stronger than ever. Now, with her father at her side and her team around her, she would soar toward the final confrontation with Prometheus. The network had created its own destroyer in the daughter of Marcus Hale. They'd trained her through their cruelty, motivated her through their murders, and united her with others who shared her purpose. Every move they'd made to protect themselves had only made her stronger. As Alaska's frozen wilderness appeared on the horizon, Nova felt the weight and warmth of her father's hand covering hers. 5 years of believing him dead, of carrying guilt and grief, melted away in that simple touch. They were together again, not just as family, but as warriors in the same fight. "Ready for the endgame?" Marcus asked. "We're just getting started," Nova replied, thinking of Prometheus somewhere in the world, believing himself untouchable. He would learn, as Pike had learned, as Al-Zayed had learned, as Cade had learned, that Phoenix Force didn't stop until the mission was complete. The transport descended toward the abandoned facility that would become their fortress, their war room, their launching point for the final assault on the network. In 3 weeks, Prometheus would make his move at the UN. But Phoenix Force would be ready. The story that began with a young woman pretending to fail at pull-ups had evolved into something neither Nova nor her enemies could have predicted. The weak recruit had been a ghost operative. The ghost operative had become a team leader. The team leader had rescued her father and assembled a force capable of taking down international criminals. And now, As the Phoenix prepared for its final flight, Nova knew with absolute certainty that Prometheus's reign was ending. The network would fall, justice would prevail, and somewhere in that victory, she might even find the peace her father wished for her. But first, there was work to do. A shadow to chase. A world to save. The Phoenix had risen, and it would not rest until the job was done.